and welcome. My name is Jorge, and this is CCNA Lab about implementing routing protocols. Specifically, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to configure static routing. Okay, now I have a Cisco packet tracer open. I will start out by adding a couple of routers. Router 0 by default and router 1. And I am also going to add a couple of computers, PC0 and PC1. And the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to double click, and well, if I hover over the computer, you can see that there's no IP set or gateway or anything else. It's just the default MAC address. So I'm going to double click it, go into the config tab, and under settings I'm going to set the gateway, and if you remember it was 10.0.0.1, and then under fast Ethernet I will set up the IP address of 10.0.0.10, and let's quickly, the subnet mask was a /28, so it'll be 255.255.255.240. And as you can see, now the IP address in the default gateway is configured. Now I will do the same for computer 1. Now the IP address for PC1 is 30.0.0.10/29. So let's configure that. 30.0.0.10/29. So that'll be 255.255.255.248. Next, we will configure router 0. I'm going to open up the router, and as you can see, I have an assortment of modules that I can put in this router. First thing I have to do, though, is turn the router off. Now I'm going to select this module for a serial interface and insert it right there and turn the router back on. You can see the green light. And now I can go to the CLI, and as you can see, the router is coming up. Alright, I'm going to configure router 1. I'm going to start by double clicking it, and we can see the back of the router, and as you can see, the slots are empty. Let me zoom in, maybe we can see it better. And I have a console port and a Ethernet port. So what I'll do is I'm gonna have all these modules that I can select from here. I will select this module and insert it. Oops. So you can see the power. I forgot to shut down the router. Here's the switch, got a green light on, so I'm going to turn it off. And now it'll allow me to do it. Now once I've inserted it into the slot, I'm ready to power it back on and go to the CLI or command line interface of the iOS. And as you can see, the router is coming up. So next what we need to do is layer 1, connect the cable. So as you can see, there's different types of cable. There's a console cable there, and a straight through, and crossover and whatnot. So if you know the type of cable you want, you select the cable and click on one host, and then you choose where you want to connect it to. That would be the Ethernet port. And then we're going to go to the router's Ethernet port. However, you're not sure, or you rather use the let the program automatically choose a connection type for you. You may select that and click on 2 nodes, and the correct cable will be selected for you. Now, serial DCE cable. When you select that, you got to remember that the first router you click, that'll be your DCE. I'm going to connect that to the serial cable, serial connection rather, and then connected to the other router serial port. Later, you may not remember how you connected it, so if you hover over the cable, it shows you a little clock and in the serial interface 00 for router 0. That'll give you a hint that that's your DCE. Okay, after the router finishes booting up, you will be presented with the configuration dialog asking whether you want to continue with it or not. I'm going to say no, and then press enter or return, and that puts me in user mode. However, I need to be in privilege mode to configure the router, so I type N for enable, puts me into enable mode. Config T, and the first thing I'm going to do is change the name of the router. This is router 1, so I'm going to call it R1 for router 1. Next, type enable secret. I'm going to hit CCNA. Time console 0. Password also CCNA. Login. Timeout 0, 0. Login synchronous. Oops. And exit. Line BTY 015. Password CCNA. Exit out of that and request service password encryption. Interface fast Ethernet 0, 0, and then the IP address for router 1 is 30.0.1/1/29 or 255.255.255.240. I'm sorry, 248. That's what I typed. I said 240, but it's 248. And then press enter and bring the interface up with a no shut command. Next, we will configure the serial interface. Interface 00/0. And the IP address for that interface is 10.0.0.2/30. That's 255.255.255.252. A shut command to bring the interface up, and then exit, and we'll enter a static route. Type in IP route, and if we look at the drawing, we can see that we're configuring router 1. That our next hop will be interface serial 00 from router 0, 20.0.0.1, and we have a route to the 10 dot network. So IP route 10.0.0.0 255.0.0.0 via 20.0.0.1. Enter. And we can see that here, the traffic, you can see the Ethernet is up, and it's talking to the PC1. We haven't configured router 0, so that's why there is no connectivity going across the other side. At this point, we could issue a ping command from here to router 0, and it said it failed, but it should work. Sometimes it fails the first time. It failed again. So the ping command failed twice from PC1 to router 1, so let's see what the problem might be. The router has an address of 30.0.0.1/29, and let's look at the address of PC1. Well, I can see right away that that's a problem. We're in a different subnet. Here's a brief explanation as to why IP address 30.0.0.1 and IP address 30.0.0.10/29 are not in the same subnet. Basically, we have 32 bits of address space, out of which 29 of them are part of the network address, hence the /29. And therefore, if out of the 32 we take away 29, that leaves us 3 bits for hosts. So we have 2 to the third, which equals 8 slots per subnet. Out of those, the all zeros and the all ones are not usable. But for our example, we can see that 30.0.0.0.1 is in the first subnet, and the other address, which is .10, is not. It's in the second subnet. Therefore, they cannot communicate. So to make it work, I will have to change the IP address of the computer to put it in the same subnet. Let's do that. I'm going to go to the CCNA. I'm going to put it in 30.0.0.4 because that number is in the same subnet. Now, let me delete this ping. I'll try the ping again. And as you can see, the ping was successful. Alright, we have resolved the connectivity issue between PC1 and router 1. So we're almost done with router 1, except that I'm going to copy the running configuration to the startup configuration. And I'm going to hit enter, and that has been done. Now I'm going to move over to router 0 to the CLI and configure it. Okay, here's the configuration so far for router 0. It is basically the same, so I'm just showing you the first part, and then I'm going to configure the interfaces. Now remember that router 0, it's a DCE, so I will configure the clock rate of 64,000. And if you forget, remember you can hover over the serial connections. You can see a little clock that reminds you that that's a DCE side. So as you can see, as soon as I configure router 0,